Aloha guys, you're watching JRTV. That is the full moon out there, ladies and gentlemen. And so where we are, we're on planet Earth. Surrounded by monolithic skyscrapers where people can live. And some have a contention with this sort of living. Some have a contention in people expressing other lifestyles, like, you know, the LGBTQ. And seems to be this underlying issue of class, or, you know, the issue is the failing middle class, etc., etc. And I just want to address it, all the while showing off the nice architecture and just the environment here. It's quite nice, and you know, sometimes all it takes is a little imagination to imagine what these nice restaurants are serving. And you know, after you eat a simple meal like a can of beans, you'll feel full and you won't have an appetite for these other things. And that's what I want to start off with when I talk about class. I want to address the idea of living within your means, because if you live within your means, then you're actually rich, quote unquote. Like, if you're able to save a good amount and not spend it all, then you're actually living, you know, you're able to live well. And that's why obviously it's important to save up a bunch before having children and things to that effect. But there's more to it, as far as this idea of it's more than just money, and it's more than just the things that back money, like wanting to deflate the currency instead of inflate it, for the currency to have more value instead of less. You know, how do we make our... You'll notice the Hawaiian music in the background too. Nice touch. How do we increase the value of our currency? You know, part of it is by producing good products and services here in the US. You know? And it's not about comparing it to other economies. But on a side note, I think that there's a usefulness in having a variety of borders and countries and currencies. People argue that, oh, it's, you know, one world would be better, but guess what that would do? That would actually concentrate power, and in a potential existence of a shall we say, of a monopolization of power, which, you know, of course we don't want. What we do want, however, is we want intelligence. And when you have intelligence, you have people who are able to sustain their own lives, meet their needs. You know, for example, they can be their own therapists. They're not so dependent on other people to control and manage their life, whether it's accounting for your money, figuring out how you're going to do things, writing down your thoughts so you're not dependent on a therapist, doing your own research and eating healthy so you're not there's no default of, oh, I'm going to get sick eventually and I'll just take medicine. All that, you know, all that's obviously another step, but it's also important. I'd like to share the idea of class, and that idea is it has to do with the way people... Check the settings here. It has to do with the way it's it's money is all that stuff is not enough. It has to do with subtle things, the way people carry themselves, engage in formalities, make choices to, like I was describing earlier, more responsible choices, but also choices of being of obviously of self-control, right? Of thinking that how much money do I need to spend in order to actually be content with my life. How much money do you need to spend? How much does your peace of mind cost? Do you need to do you need to actually own things in order to enjoy them, or can you rent them? Do you need to constantly experience different luxuries and riches, or can you share them and like pay for someone else's vacation instead of going on a vacation one day? One year instead, skip a year, stuff to that effect. But the real issue is concerning the different the space between the richest and the poorest. And the easy way to resolve that is to just bring to your awareness that next in the future incarnation, you're going to incarnate somewhere, and if you'd like to be better, then make sure that you're making an effort in that direction. And the idea of class also has to do with, like I was saying, formality and being marriage oriented, being family oriented, things like that. But not family oriented in the sense of feeling a sense of obligation towards your biological relatives, which I don't think should necessarily be. But I mean that in the sense of your nuclear family, like when you actually do decide to commit to a family, to building a family, being, making that a priority. And if you actually think about it, in a way it's a dangerous thing, because if you have to make that a priority in your life, then what ends up happening is you may do things and activities and engage in pursuits that are not in everyone's interest, but just in the interest of supporting your family so they can survive. So that would be something to consider as well. I also want to, I'm touching on this idea of LGBTQ, and I feel like people should be able to. Oh, here's some guy with a huge TV. That's funny. The view's nice up here, guys. I'm glad to bring you to 70 feet up in the air up here at Ward Village to get a different vantage point of things. But I think that sexual expression should be a more private thing. Like these people being all, obviously in society, people can be all, flamboyant, whatever you want to call it, queer, but is that really indicative of somebody who's competent and respectful? Because when you do stuff like that, you're kind of expressing you're expressing kind of a sexuality that should it be for all children to children and everyone to see? And like what's the alternative? My question also is what's like the alternative to that? The idea being that what's important is competence, being competent, being able to do things. That's my idea. So so these points have been uh, to just try to transcend this idea that there's different classes, and really it's just about having respect and being classy and being, thinking responsibly and doing, these certain affirmations and what it takes to actually build money and security, so you're not dependent on other people. Instead of thinking about it like, rich people should help you, just realize that, like, for example, if they did help you, then guess what? You might end up just spending all the money away and pursuing the same habits you have. See, money only adds fuel to the fire, right? And the most important thing is we want to strengthen our currency, as both in this nation and beyond. But in order to do that, check out the pavilion up there. Yeah, it's nice. In order to strengthen it, we have to first have some have some have some more of a dignified approach to things. I'm glad to share my take on this whole thing, and a transition from hoping others will take care of things, the government and whatever, to hoping you'll take care of things. Like, for example, if you do that, you're actually going to experience true freedom and not be owing or a burden upon others.